What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Breadcrumbs of Inspiration. Today we have a super special guest, Dr. Sam, who is a naturopathic doctor, expert on the mind-body connection, as well as gut health. But today, her typical interviews are a little bit different, but today we're going to go in a different direction. Still talk about gut health and all that fun stuff, but we're going to talk about a little bit of a different topic today, which I'm personally very interested in, as I know so many other people don't really think about this topic very much. So we're going to dive into that. It's going to be super fun, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome, Dr. Sam.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Yes. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
Amazing. So let's give people a little bit of context on who you are, your background story, where you come from, how you got into the field of naturopathic medicine, and then how maybe it transitioned as of recently, not out of it, but in your own, evolution. So yeah, love to hear your story.
So should we start in the womb? Where I
Maybe.
come from. My mom is, well, I was born in Iran, moved to America when I was around 11 with my family, with my mom and my sister. And my dad passed away when I was 7 years old, which I believe had a really huge impact on who I am today, in a way of creating such resiliency and so much healing to open my heart and be interested in health, wellness, life, death. So came to America, was really into nutrition when I was in high school, really into understanding how the body works. You know, everyone was doing these fad diets, like everyone wanted to be thin, this, that. And I just wanted to understand, how does food affect our body? So I studied nutrition in undergrad. And I was also like, my dad passed away when he was 38. He was super healthy. So I really wanted to know what happens in the body. How could someone just have a heart attack at 38? So I was like, I want to prevent other people from going through that. So studied nutrition, understood how nutrition plays a role, but still didn't feel really satiated with the amount of knowledge. And I just wanted to know more. And I wasn't even sure what that more was. I was like, I want to do more. So then someone told me about naturopathic medical school, someone that I met actually at a funeral, which is really interesting. It was an acupuncturist who was my friend's dad's healer, who, when I told him what I was interested in, he's like, that sounds like naturopathic medicine. And I was like, what is that? How come I've never heard of it? So I remember that night perfectly. I went home, researched it, and I was like, this is it. This is everything I've been looking for. So then applied, got into naturopathic medical school. And that's when my healing journey truly started. That's when first year of naturopathic medical school, we had to do counseling we had to go to the counseling center for a whole year. We had to do things to heal ourselves. We had a whole class dedicated to what's a trauma you want to let go of. And I worked around my dad's death. Yeah. And they told us the first day of naturopathic medical school that you will not be the same person. If you make it through this school, you'll come out a completely different person. Wow. And I can attest to that. I am very different.
That's a good program.
Yeah. It was almost like my own healing program.
Wow.
So studied naturopathic medicine. Second year, really got into meditation because of the mentors I had. The mentors I gained because I wanted to learn about vitamin injections and different types of pain injections. One of them, he ended up becoming my mentor in a way of teaching me how to meditate and bringing love into every session. And he's still my mentor, would always tell me that, Sam, diet, lifestyle, all that is cool. But if you don't, as a healer, show up with your heart open and create that space for your patients to feel that love and feel heard, their healing won't fully take effect, right? So and he was like, it's so important for you to meditate and for you to be grounded and for you
wholesome place.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So anything that would come up in me, he's like, did you meditate? So that's when that seed, but did you meditate?
Right.
So that's when that seed got planted in me. And then, so I got really interested in the mind-body connection because I wanted to then teach my patients about the transformations I experienced. And then also looking at what was affecting the physical body. So there was always this thing for me that I wanted to heal the body, but I saw the really important aspect of the mind and the spirit and the soul and how they all come together. So really got into gut health from there because that's where inflammation starts, and IV therapy because if you have inflammation in the gut, you're not absorbing all your nutrients. So the science nerd in me was really interested in that stuff. And then my soul has just always been so hungry for understanding everyone else's soul and my own soul.
Right, the truth.
Yeah, the truth of who we really are.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's an awesome story. I love how, I have a big belief that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I say it all the time. I talk about it all the time. And it's interesting how you met a mentor early in your career to really like set you up for success in a way to, lead with an open heart and come into that healing space with the right energy. Because I think, it doesn't matter if you're an energy healer or a doctor or a nutritionist, whatever. Healing's healing.
Absolutely.
And the intention and the purity from the get is so important.
Yeah.
I love how you like that just right off the get just came in.
Thank you. I know I'm pretty lucky.
So, okay. So you go to school, you become a doctor, it begins your healing journey. Would you say your healing journey also was side by side with your spiritual awakening, or would you say that came a little later?
I would say,
or that was the beginning?
Yeah, it's still happening.
Yeah, of course, right. It's a never-ending process.
Exactly. I think when I was ready and started having experiences with meditation and seeing things, and I think it all started together, but very slowly, right? And it's still happening. And I learn about myself every single day still that I get so surprised. So I'm still going through the process. I think till the day I die, right? It will be happening. But I think it coincided and just all happened together.
Very cool. So I'm curious about your meditation practice and in your process of talking about mind-body connection. Was it you first focused on just body, and then did you learn about because where does the fascination come in between the mind-body connection? Because I think so many people don't realize it's literally the one. And if your gut's off, your brain's going to be off. It's your second brain, Yeah. But then you also need to have the right tools to be mindful or, have the awareness through meditation. So I'm curious how those dots connect.
Yeah. So for me, the meditation I started with was really focused on the energetic body. It was breathing through the different energy centers. But at the same time that I started meditating, I was also taking an elective on biofeedback. I was in school, right? So I took the course in biofeedback.
Really quick, is biofeedback the same as neurofeedback?
A little bit, okay. But biofeedback is more like you have attachments to different parts of the body. I think neurofeedback is just to the brain and what's changing in your brain. Biofeedback is different parts. So you have a belt around your belly to understand if you're breathing or holding your breath. You have some on your muscles, like places where people usually hold tension. You have something on your hands to measure this if you're sweating. So then you put people through different stressors and see how their body's responding, their stress response. So people would come to me with tension headaches, and we would see through stress, even if it's a micro change, but that tension staying in their neck. Or people would come with higher blood pressure, and they're working on that, right, through stressors. And someone's trigger would be every time they got a phone call, they thought it was about a traumatic event that happened years ago, right? So their blood pressure would spike. So we would take them through it, and we would see how they hold their breath. Because what happens with our body is stressor happens, and then there's a response. Yes. Stressors are always going to be around us. I mean, we can't live in a bubble with nothing coming at us, right? This is life. We're on this planet. Yes. There's stress. And sometimes people are addicted to stressors and that stress response, right? Most people are. It's one thing resolves, we're looking for the next thing to bring us anxiety because that's what feels like thriving. So then we would create that awareness through biofeedback. So we would have weekly sessions with patients where just creating, like you said, awareness of what is actually happening in me. And then I would educate them on, okay, this stressor is coming, you're holding your breath, cortisol is being produced, take them through the whole education part. And when you know this, then when you know what's happening, right. There's no way the next time it happens, you're like, oh, I'm holding my breath. Yes. I'm changing my posture. Now I'm sitting like this because someone called. And then you slowly start changing that. And then after 10 weeks together, you're like, okay, I can notice it and I can change it in the moment.
Ooh,
But the
so
first
good.
step with any change we want to make is that awareness around
Yes.
it, without any judgment,
Yes.
with loving kindness, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, wow, this is the way I've been responding to it. And I truly believe that's like when we're responding to something emotionally or even physically, right?
Yes.
So I got to do both of that with my patients and see the profound change. This is when I was a student. And then I started doing work around even without attaching them. So I would say, I'm your biofeedback machine today. So now today I don't even use a biofeedback machine, which sometimes I'm like, oh, I kind of miss it. I want to use it to show what's happening on a computer. But I'm so like, I don't know how I feel about technology.
Yeah.
I like to keep it real and human, right? And be
Yes.
like, Anton, I just said this. I saw your foot clench or go like this. And then that would create it. And then it would be like micro changes that then you would notice.
Wow.
So then, I would educate on cortisol gets spiked, then it affects your gut lining, creates leaky gut over time. Chronic stress does that. There's research about how our gut and our brain communicates, and it's
Yes.
not just a one-way communication, it's both ways.
Yes.
So brain to your gut affects how you're digesting, gut to the brain, how you're producing serotonin and changes your mood and all that stuff. Yeah. It's really fascinating.
That's super interesting. I had a mentor once told me, if you can't control something you said made me think of this. If you can't control your mind, control your body. If you can't control your body, control your mind. Okay. And it was essentially like helping you just feel good in certain situations where like you would use your body as a tool to influence your mind. So we all know not everybody, but a lot of people understand that, straightening your back, good posture, you're automatically going to start having like a better response neurochemically because your body is your mind in a sense. It's just one. Yeah, it's totally one. That's very interesting. So yeah, you had hands-on experience of like showing people the tangible, like, look, when you respond like this is what your body's doing. It's happening in your mind, but it's also happening in your body. That's so interesting. So it's like that. You gave them the full-blown connection.
Exactly. And when they see that, they're like, okay,
How
we got
can-
it. Yeah.
Yeah, how can
Even
we not
subconsciously,
change?
they're like, oh, they know it. It's just
Yes.
that awareness is there.
Yes.
And they choose where do they want to go with it when they're not in office with
Yes.
you, right?
It's called metacognition in terms of neuroscience. Ooh, cool. Aware that you're aware.
Yeah.
So it's like once you have the awareness, you can change it.
Yeah.
Most people, though, it's subconscious. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears. We have had a few separate conversations off camera about death. Yeah. And this is a super interesting conversation to me and topic. And obviously you lost your dad when you were young, and that was a huge, catalyst in going down, becoming a doctor, learning, why does somebody have a heart attack at such a young age, health, stress, diet, gut, etc., exercise, all those things necessary. But where did it shift for you when you wanted to start, contemplating more the concept of death, and where does that come into all of this?
Yeah. So it's been like, I've been dabbling with that concept for a few, I think ever since probably from a long time ago, but started understanding it when I became a doctor and spending a lot of time with patients of different ranges. And as a naturopathic doctor, we get a lot of time with our patients, or at least the way I've been trained, I get like 90 minutes with each patient. Wow. And there are times, well. Yeah. And, when I first graduated and I started I was a part of this clinic where I got a lot of time with my patients doing IVs. And I would be in a room and I would have 3 to 4 patients at a time. And everyone would become, like, they all became friends because they would have like weekly IVs. And I had a few patients that had chronic illnesses, and really sitting with them. And particularly there was one who probably really impacted, not probably, for sure has impacted my path as a doctor.
Why so?
So he got diagnosed with a chronic illness, ALS, where, it's like, okay, this is for sure. There's no cure for it. You have maybe 5 years. And when you get that in your 50s and you're this successful man, have an amazing family and have a lot going on, and then you get a diagnosis. It really impacts. You're like, oh, like, I mean, for anyone, it would change your life, right?
Of course.
So I got to see him transition through this diagnosis, and I remember 6 months into us spending time together. I would do IVs for him twice a week, and we really got to know each other and his family. Like, we all became friends, right? Yeah. And I remember one day he told me, Sam, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Getting ALS.
Yeah. He's like, I am finally living. I have let go of so much in the past that wasn't serving me. He completely changed his lifestyle. He had a whole morning routine. He got rid of his company, started something else. And he changed his life completely. And he was like, I didn't even know how I was living before this. Was I even living? So we had conversations around this, and I was like, wow. Then other patients came up where they would almost say the same thing of like, this diagnosis of MS or this diagnosis of cancer really woke me up, and it shifted who I am. I got to understand who I am. And
wow.
So I started thinking, why do we wait for a diagnosis that has a timeline to kind of change our lives, to live the life we want to live, or actually wake up and live? We're on autopilot, and we don't even think about death as a thing. Like, we think we're invincible and one day we're going to die at 95. And that's not true. I mean, my dad died when he was 38. Right?
You never know.
Exactly. So the thing is that's where I got really excited about inspiring all my patients to just really live. So it's not like, it wasn't actual death that was something that was like, oh, let's talk about what happens when we die.
Right.
It was like, how are we living?
Yes.
How are we living now? Because death is inevitable. Death is the only thing that's guaranteed in life. Yet with our culture, we create such a morbidity. Like, we create such a, oh my God, let's not go there. Don't say you're going to die one day. But it's like, it's as soon as you're born, you know you're going to die.
Right.
So that's where I'm like, I talk about death with my patients, and I'm like, okay. And then the fear that comes with diagnoses and the things they experience. So I've learned a lot through my patients, honestly, and what they've gone through. And that's what really inspired, I think, my path of how do we inspire others to actually live? Like, why do we have to wait?
So true.
Yeah.
Why do people wait? Do you think? I think a lot of it has to do with people just don't, like, in me personally. Yeah. I had never really thought about, like, I'm gonna die one day. Yeah. Like, and when you have that, like, in the front of your mind or even the back of your mind, it's like every day I'm moving closer towards my expiration in this human body, my personal beliefs. But with that said, that means I have to chase my dreams way more fearlessly. I have to be way more ambitious. I have to show up better every day for myself and everyone around me. It made me want to become better. I didn't become fearful, but it's like you say, like, it's shunned in our society to, like, talk about this stuff. So it's super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, even the way you show up in a conversation, this is the thought that a couple of years ago I started thinking this way, where I was like, if this is the last conversation I have with someone and then my funeral is next week, this person's going to be like, wow, I was the last person that talked to her before she, like, got hit by a car or whatever. And they're going to talk about this conversation. I hope it's an inspiring one. You know what I mean? I hope that, but that's, like, I think my mission in life, like, my whole thing, even as a doctor, as a friend, as a daughter, as sister, I just hope to inspire people. Like, that's my goal in life, whether it's through a conversation or through a hug or whatever it is. That's what it is. So that's why I think about that, right? That I hope the last person I hug is inspired in some way, you know, and, like, I'm left inspired. I'm like, okay, good. I feel good about that. A few months ago, actually in September. So the more comfortable I am with the topic of death too, the more I learn and the more connection I have with my father. My dad's death anniversary is in September. And I remember it was 7 days before that day, and I was on an airplane. And I just thought about him. I was like, wow, 20 something years ago, I think 27 years ago, my dad didn't know that he was going to die in 7 days. I just got like, it was almost like I went into his body and tried to experience life through him, of like, he was just at his office doing whatever he was doing, probably looking at me and being like, huh, you know, looking at his wife, whatever. The last dinner we all had together, he had no idea that he wasn't going to wake up the next day. So if he, right, it is such a trip. So if he had known that this is the last meal I have with my family, how would it go? Right? How would that, and not in a lack way, right? But in like, how do we create abundance in every interaction? And how do we bring so much love to it? Because again, like, we just don't know what our journey on this planet is. And I was like, I started just sobbing on the airplane. And I was like, oh my God, I feel for him. I feel for my mom. If she knew this was the last time she was going to hug her husband, you know, how would she have interacted with him? Oh, my heart is just racing when I think about that. Yeah. So that's what's really inspiring me. How do I show up every day, right? How do I interact? And that doesn't mean I have to always be positive, jumping up and down. Not. But am I fully feeling myself every moment? And it's more about me and how I want to show up. And in that, and like, let's say today, if the rest of the day I want to be in isolation and I want to sit with my feelings, that's cool too. Just because we're going to die one day doesn't mean we need to take every moment and do something extravagant with it. It's the simplicity of life too. And like just listening to ourselves and being fully present with everything we do. Even if it's staring at the wall, are we fully choosing that? If I'm sitting, I do that a lot where I just sit at home and do nothing. Me of Irina. That's why we're friends. So, you know, so it's like, if I'm fully sitting there with the wall and just doing that, am I fully in it? Or do I wish I was somewhere else? And why am I not somewhere else if I wish I was somewhere else? What's preventing me? The fear, right? The fear of taking that leap. We were having this conversation before we started recording of like, when our body tells us it's tired and we're so afraid of taking time off from work, right?
And then from programs.
Yeah. And we're like, oh, but if I take a week off, but what about that paycheck? Like, what about this? What about the people that need my help? Like, and then, but you're neglecting yourself and the things you need in that moment. And then the universe sends you COVID or like it did to me like a few months back.
Or a sick body.
Something else. Exactly.
That's your soul being like, bro.
Exactly.
Hey, you.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Wake up. You need to honor yourself. So why do we not do that? So sitting with so many patients, going through these transformational times with them. I mean, honestly, having the privilege of seeing them transform really helped me understand life better, understand death better, understand that transition and how it's beautiful. Like, we celebrate birth into this life. And of course, death comes with grieving and we don't get to see our loved ones in their physical form anymore. Like, yeah, there's a lot that comes with that. And we don't have time in this realm with them anymore, right? But how do we take advantage of that knowledge and how do we live? Because here's the thing. People don't spend time together. And then when someone dies, they're like, fuck, I wish I had spent time with them.
Right.
I wish I had gone to lunch with them.
Right.
I wish I'd bought them flowers.
Right.
You know, like, oh my God, I didn't do enough for this person. So if we really thought about it, I think we would have so many more meaningful relationships, so many more meaningful interactions. Even your Uber driver would have a meaningful interaction with you, or the person that's checking you out at the grocery store. I just think there would be so much more meaning in life if we all acknowledge that this physical realm is so temporary.
What's coming to my head right now is contemplating death brings you closer to life.
Yes.
It so does. The true meaning of life, to, in my beliefs, let your soul express. Like, let your soul express through you, or your higher self to express through you as your best self, your greatest like just this beauty of your soul to live through you. This is like really powerful. Ever since we had the conversation, which is why I wanted to invite you on the podcast, I have not stopped thinking about this.
I love that.
because it really gives you fucking perspective of like, holy shit, like I am actually going to die. Yeah. I'm okay with that. Yeah. But I am not satisfied with how I've been showing up my whole life because it's not the best me. And if I knew tomorrow or next week was my last day, this week would be fucking amazing. But why don't we live our life like that? You would squeeze so much juice out of life if you just had that mindset 24/7.
Exactly.
So in this whole process for you of death, and I like being blunt with that word.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's just like, I want to talk about death.
I love being blunt in general.
It's a raw, it's a really raw topic, but I think when you like use the language in a certain way, it like can like really wake people up. Be like, holy shit, I'm going to die. Yeah. We talked off camera and you told me about how you actually help somebody transition from life to death. I am so curious what that was like, what you were feeling. Yeah. Break it down. I'm so curious.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. So, I always knew that. So me and this person that was passing, we had a really amazing connection. She is incredible. We talked every day. She was in her 90s, and she ended up having a stroke before, like a month before she passed away. Flew down from Seattle to see her, and it's actually my grandma, right? She's like, she raised us. She lived with us after my dad passed away, or we lived with her, really. And she was like this rock in our family. She's beautiful. And so what happened was my grandma had a stroke, complications with some surgery she had, and then she ended up being paralyzed on one side. But then she was getting better, so they were going to remove her from the hospital to go get physical therapy and get stronger. But then things took a turn. So I saw her twice while she was in this really phase of just having a really suffering, really. Yeah. Our family was like, how do we fix her? How do we, she was 95, 94, almost 95. And she has 8 kids, right? And everyone was like, we need to, my mom has 7 other siblings. Yeah. Wow. So everyone wanted to just really make sure that she gets out of this and, gets better. And I flew down from Seattle, and we spent the night before she passed away together. And I had multiple conversations with her, and one of them was, you can let go. Like, what do you, I was like, we're safe. You're okay. Because I think everyone else was putting that energy of like, no, you need to hold on to dear life and stay strong. And I was like, honey, like, we're going to be okay. Wow. You can let go. Well, the next day, we spent that night together. She was suffering through the whole night.
Was she able to communicate?
She was able to communicate.
What was she? I'm so curious. Like when you said it's okay to let go, how did she respond?
Her eyes were closed.
Okay.
She was not responding to me. No, she was like, it was almost like she was sleeping when I was talking to her about this. She was like in a nap. Right. But she was fully awake during this. It wasn't like she was in a coma or anything. She was awake, but she couldn't have any water, or she couldn't move the left side of her body. But during this time, she was napping, and I just held her hand and talked to her about it. And the next day, the only moment, because we never left her alone either at the hospital. It was like there was always someone there. So I left in the morning, and there was an hour before anyone else was able to get there. And she passed away during that hour.
Right after you left?
Yeah. Wow. And it was
so interesting.
Yeah. And as much as it was hard to like be like, oh, I wish I had more time with my grandma. I was so happy for her.
Right. It's not about you or us.
Yeah. And it also makes me question when we do lose our loved ones, some of the times the feelings that come up are really regret, and really regretting the way we've showed up for them and the relationships we had, and how we wish we had more time to do things differently with them. Like, oh, I wish I had showed up for my best friend a different way before I didn't know she was going to die. Right. Or different things.
Total regret in all fronts.
Exactly. And that's a common thing. Yeah. And that's what makes us like, hold on, I think, and changes, or it's a part of the grieving process. Right. So again, it goes back to if we fully engage in those interactions with our loved ones and are fully present, then we get to grieve their death in such a different way and not hold on to that guilt of what we didn't do and what we wish we had done. It's like, oh, we really had this relationship and we really showed up for each other. And okay, I'll see you on the other side, or whatever your beliefs are, you know? But it's like, okay, and again, sometimes people pass when we're like, it's too soon for them to go. It's not fair. But what do we even know about where it happens after?
All
right?
the
Again, we've
that
created
unfold.
these stories.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that a lot of it is around the guilt we have of the way we've showed up for people.
I feel like intuitively, I don't know if you agree, but I wonder if us not letting go, like even after they pass, in us not letting go, we actually affect their ability to fully transition to the afterlife. Like that energy. I wonder if that, I have no idea, totally philosophy, but I feel like it totally does. If I had to guess.
I would say so too, because again, I'm not an expert.
Right.
But
neither am I.
Yeah, we're having a conversation, but I've had to do work around me, like with experts around me and letting my dad go.
Yeah.
So he could, because they've told me that he couldn't fully transition because of like,
and they were like,
because him and I were really close. Like we had this really sweet bond. So
of course.
It was like I was affecting the way he was transitioning.
Those people you talked to, were they like mediums or like psychic mediums, or were they just could they communicate with the other side, or was that just
no, it was just
their expertise,
that's part of it.
Interesting.
But no,
so my
mediums.
intuition was right.
Yeah, your intuition is right. Wow. Absolutely.
I so feel like very strongly about that.
Yeah, it's a really
that's so interesting for me to ponder right now. And this is really interesting too, because your journey started at a funeral.
You're right.
It's such symbolism for where like you're clearly heading.
You're right. I actually, it's so funny.
That's
when I said
chills.
I know when I mentioned that at the beginning of the interview.
Yep.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, I saw that. I wanted to bring it back full circle. Yeah.
I was like,
wow.
It all started at a funeral, and now I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, because death is like associated with dark, but it's actually the exact opposite. Yeah. Because if you, like we talked about, if you embrace death, you can live life more full, which is light, which is beauty, which is grace, love, etc.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really powerful. I really hope, I'm like, how do we bring this conversation? Because I've tried having this conversation with different groups of people just to see how people gauge.
Yeah,
and
some people.
Like with my mom, she's like, ah!
Yeah. I think
she panics.
most people, yeah.
And she's like, why are you talking about this?
To be honest, I feel like it's so subconscious because they know they're not living life to the fullest. And it's almost like they want to brush that under the rug and just stay in the program because they're scared to fully embrace life. And they can't even contemplate the thought of death because they know they're not living, which is why they need to contemplate death, to like wake their soul up, to be like, yo, start living, start doing what you're here to love. Wow, it's so fucking powerful. I love this.
I know. What do you think? What's the population percentage that you think is living like that? In their fear and not living?
99.9%.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe a little less, but I'd say if I had to argue it, if you ask 10 people on the street, like most people don't live their dreams. They don't have like crazy love, it's all surface. They don't just expand and let their soul live through them because of fear, because of things they've taken on through their lives.
Yeah.
They never become financially free. There's so many things that restrict their expansion. Yeah. Self-induced, but that's what doing the work is and waking up is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wanted to tell you about, so the last breath work I did with you and
Yes,
Irina.
that's where I wanted to go next.
Is that where you want to go? Okay.
I was thinking,
read
I
your
was
mind.
like, yeah, there you go. Picked it up.
Because that's when we had these discussions too. So I had I woke up that morning with like journaling about this, right? Just death, this.
So you woke up the morning of the breathwork event.
Yeah.
And for everybody listening, we had a breathwork private event with our close friends here at our house. Sam was one of those people that came. So that morning, you woke up, journaled about death.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
Yeah.
Just making
and
sure
I was like, I need to explore. I woke up. So I journal every morning, right? And I wake up thinking like, it's like, because when we're sleeping, you probably know more about this than I do, about the subconscious mind and how it's just refreshing and downloading and telling us so much about ourselves, right? So
symbolism and other things, dreams. Yeah.
Exactly. So I journal in the morning, usually first thing when I wake up, most days. That morning I woke up with all this excitement and I just started writing, and I wrote about how I need to talk about death more, and I need to understand it more, and I need to talk to everyone about it, because it had been a topic that had come up a lot in the past week, but I didn't get it until that morning of why is everyone talking to me about it and grieving to me, like talking to me about grieving a process or anyway, woke up with this little nugget, and then came here, went into the breathwork session, and I, through the session, left my body. And I knew in that breathwork session that I had died, which is something that I had never experienced. I've done breathwork sessions before. One of them, I did leave and saw myself before I was born. But this one was like legit. I felt like I had died.
Yeah, you had the full DMT hit your brain for sure.
Yeah, I want you to teach me about that too.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
So I felt the freedom that I felt this type of freedom I've never felt before. Wow. It was like that my body was there, but I was up front, like jumping on the grass and like literally just jumping for joy. And I felt so free, and I felt like I was making all these decisions that were for me. And it was like, I'm not going to say all these decisions that came to me, but all these realizations that I made during that from no fear, right? And I was like, holy shit, I could be living like this. And I thought I was like, oh yeah, I'm so connected to my heart, and I'm always making decisions from my heart.
Yeah.
But this experience, I was like, oh my God, I have so much fear, and I'm letting go of all of it. And what am I even holding on to? What am I afraid of? If that is what I'm meant to feel, that freedom of like jumping on the grass like a little girl and just being so free without any worries in the world. And so that was the coolest experience, to just fully feel that. And then almost like have that part of me that had passed talk to me about just letting go and just making decisions from that place. Everything that I'm talking about, of like that little like percentage of fear that was left, I was like, I can just let that go. It was so profound. So what happened to me?
Oh man, I don't know. But well, okay. So I want to make sure the listeners are understanding what you're saying. So you're in this breathwork experience, and we teach this powerful breathwork, and this is very common to like leave your body or to have like almost an otherworldly experience where you're here, but you're somewhere else too. Yeah. It's very interesting. Very subjective.
And it's not scary. It's no. You're safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, at times.
Yeah.
And so you leave your body, and that leaving of the body was like symbolism for your dying. Mm-hmm. Like you're going over to the other side is what I'm gathering. And in that you had new perspective on life, because all the fears, you realize like, oh, that's not who I truly am here to be. Yeah. I'm here to live fully. I'm here to express. I'm here to live through my soul. Yeah. So it was interesting too for the listeners, your physical body was freezing cold during this time.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Freezing cold.
Yes. I asked for extra blankets.
Yes. And you were like shaking.
Yeah.
And you had like 3 blankets, and the room was warm. Mm-hmm. It's like your brain can't tell the difference. Wow. So in a sense, you literally died and came back. Holy shit. Your brain had no idea that so that's what happened. And we don't know you know, how far this goes. But if you're familiar with psychedelics like 5-MeO, ayahuasca, mushrooms, the compound in those drugs is a chemical called DMT, dimethyltryptamine. And that same chemical is released in the brain when you die. It can also be released in the brain through breath work. And when you come to life as well, I believe. I'm not sure on that last one, but the first two, 100% fact. And that triggers like the pineal gland.
Yeah.
And then that can give you like a full-blown mystical experience because your brain literally thinks it's dying because the DMT is releasing. So that's why a lot of people who do psychedelics, they have like this ego death because they confront death.
Yeah.
But you know, you did it the natural way. Yeah. So everybody's body responds differently, but I think it's so interesting on how this all clearly is tying together for you to bring this more forward. It's so clear, which is really cool.
Thank you for pointing that out because sometimes it's not clear to me, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, why is this all coming up?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so it's so crazy even thinking back to like how you were literally freezing cold.
Yeah. It was crazy. And then another part of it that was wild too is
then you said you were reborn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I saw myself being reborn. And
so what happened? Like walk people through your mind. Like what were you experiencing? Because some people are gonna hear this and be like, what? Like I don't understand.
Yeah. They're gonna be like, whoa, what is she talking about? So then it's like I experienced that immense joy.
Yes.
Like
bliss.
Insane blissful joy where I was like, I need to see footage of that because I wish I could see myself go through that, like my physical form, because what I was seeing in my mind was like heaven, right? Yeah. And then I was reborn. I was in a womb, but I was a bird.
Oh, interesting.
I was like a fluffy little cozy bird, and then I felt warm again.
What kind of bird, do you know?
Yeah, it was white and blue. And I don't know what it was. I have no idea, but I found a picture. Like I came across one. And I was like, oh my God, this was the bird I was. But you know when birds go like tuck their beak in and like birds. Get fluffy?
Yes.
So that's what I was. And I was white and I had some blue feathers too. Yes. And I was like, cool, I'm a bird now. And then I was in the womb. And then when I came out of that journey, when we were all done, I was like, whoa, who am I?
Yeah,
like
you even looked different.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. Did I look like a bird? I'm kidding.
No, you seemed, I guess, like reborn.
Yeah.
Like honestly, and that's decently common after breathwork, like feeling a sense of reborn. Like people feel like a lot of things we hear, like their soul returns to themselves.
Yeah.
It never left. It was just you work through all the layers. But wow, that's so profound.
Yeah.
So you died, were reborn,
and it was all so. It was again peace and joy, like insane amount of joy. Yes. And then was a bird, and then I came back to and it was like I had so much clarity after that too, of like who I am, what my journey is, the decisions I want to make. Yeah. I feel like after that session too, I keep showing up with so much integrity to myself and like so much greater boundaries and really being true to who I am and not having a fear of how is this going to work out? Because I just know that life is always working out no matter what's showing up for us. Even if it's something traumatic, it's like, okay, then I got to work through this, right? I got to feel the pain. I got to do X, Y, and Z and experience it as a soul. But really, I feel like I let go of just expectations for myself and fear and just showing up with so much more integrity for myself and connection to myself and respect for myself.
I mean, how couldn't you if you literally faced death?
Yeah. And then I think, you know what's so cool too? You know how I talk about, okay, so why don't we look at death before we get that chronic illness diagnosis? Like, how do we start living now as if you God forbid, got that or whatever? Why don't we wait for that? So now it's like, I didn't even have a near death. You know how people say I had a near death experience and now everything changed? Well, for me, I didn't have a near death experience, but I did die in my mind. Yeah. So how cool is that? Like I wish this was like a required thing for all human beings to just live life. I wonder how different our society would be. I wonder how much more kindness and how much more authenticity and love there would be, because everyone would just love themselves and have that much respect for their soul. And like it would be such a different world if we all lived that way. And 99% of us aren't living that way. So yeah.
We need messengers to bring the message forward.
Yeah.
I think when people know better, they do better. And I mean, my background, social media and spreading messages of similar natures, of tuning into who we truly are and working through those programs and fears and using the tools, the right things, breath work. But I think information delivered in a certain way has so much power. Yeah. And I think there's a way to package it to where you speak to the soul. And that's why I'm so passionate about these conversations, because there is somebody listening right now who is fully taking all of this in. Yeah. And it's hitting bypassing the analytical mind, going somewhere deeper. And that's my definition, is that's truth. Yeah. The soul knows truth. You can feel it. Yeah. Like this whole conversation, I've had goosebumps multiple times.
I know.
So wow, it's so cool. It's so profound. And it's like you said, everything in life happens for a reason. So although the passing of your father wasn't ideal, nobody knows how the dots connect. And I'm sure you have your own process in that, but it's like, maybe it's grace in a weird way. Absolutely. In a beautiful way. It's hard to comprehend that because, there's so many intricacies, but I find it interesting the way your life is taking you, from everything, from the symbolism of becoming a doctor at the funeral, like the seed planted, and then you having your own practice and becoming a doctor and helping people heal their mind, body, gut, how it's all connected. And then in your own journey, realizing like, wow, you don't have to wait for a diagnosis to start living life, your life of your dreams. Yeah. And it all ties together. It's such a clear picture. It's really cool. And you lead with that. Like you bring that death component up front. Boom. Like if you know you're going to die, you're going to take care of your health way differently. If you truly actually think about this stuff. And then that's going to affect, your mind and everything else and how you show up, and it's beautiful.
You're right. And here's the other viewpoint too. When you were saying it, I was listening. I was like, oh, it could also go a completely different way, right? Imagine if someone becomes really destructive because they're like, I am going to die. So why don't I
They don't think they have purpose.
Exactly.
Wow.
So then it's like, well, I'm going to die one day anyway. So let me do a bunch of drugs. Yeah. Let me party, and I have no purpose in life.
Wow.
So I think there is responsibility in that too.
Absolutely.
Of like the beauty of actually fully living.
Yes.
And creating abundance in our lives and living fearlessly. But then there are people that would look at them like, oh, well, I'm going to die one day. So why don't I just kill myself with all the junk food I could eat and all the, instead of, it's like, well, then they create the dark side of it.
Yeah.
Right. So where, we got to create this fine balance between, because I look at it in such a like, oh, wow, abundance, light, beautiful. Right. That's how we're talking about it.
But there's a flip side.
There's a flip side.
Yeah. And it comes so much to like the spiritual foundation, in my opinion. Somebody's spiritual beliefs are going to totally affect how they look at this, because some people don't believe there's anything after this. Yeah. I personally don't believe that. I obviously know you don't believe that. Yeah. So I would be curious to talk to like somebody who doesn't believe in God or something like that and see their take, because what's really interesting about this too? My entire life, high school, middle school, I was like complete rebel, cheated on every single test. Yeah. Just wasn't my thing. Yeah. There was one project that I actually went deep in. Guess what the topic was?
Death?
Assisted suicide.
Oh.
Which is so interesting.
Yeah.
It's like the only thing I can like remember where I actually I actually did the work because you had to.
Yeah.
Because like you can't copy someone's entire project.
And yeah, you're like, oh, I
Everyone
have
had their
to
own
do
unique
this.
topics.
But you chose that topic.
I chose
you're
that
like,
topic.
if I have to do it myself,
Yeah,
it
and
better be something
I don't
I'm
know
interested in.
what. I mean, I was so different then than I am now, but I don't know what drew me to that. But it was Kevorkian. I don't know if you've ever looked into this guy. Yeah, there's like a whole thing. He like, yeah, he was killing people with with medication
Yeah.
to help them, transition because he wanted to put them out of suffering. But and I don't know what the rules are now, but back then it was illegal. You couldn't just do that.
Yeah.
And there were certain states that allowed assisted suicide and stuff, but it's so interesting.
So cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're really interested in this.
I'm so interested.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I was like, I want to talk to you about it, because I want to hear your perspective, because I think it's so, so important. It's like I said, I think you got to embrace death to fully live life.
Absolutely. And that's the whole message.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. How are we embracing? How are we living every single day? That's one of the main questions going back to my practice as a doctor, I ask my patients, how do you want to live? I don't even ask them, what would you like your diet to be? You know, or like, the most important question to me is, how do you want to live, be, and feel every day?
Yes.
And how are you actively doing that in your life? So if you want to feel free, what are you doing in your life to achieve that? If you want to feel energized, are you engaging in things that give you energy? And then we talk about lifestyle and diet and changing like the biochemistry. But again, we're doing all that to feel a certain way, to be fully alive.
Yes.
So I'm not,
It all comes back.
It all comes back. Like, we're not just doing your blood work and changing your diet and healing your gut just because you want your gut to be healthy. I mean, it all comes back to we want to feel good every day. We want to live every day.
We want to be alive.
We want to be alive. So if we're doing all that, why aren't we doing it fully?
So good.
So,
and then there's like the second aspect of like the death of the old self in a way, where you have to, on a spiritual sense, have to let go of your personality even at a certain point to fully experience, the deeper spiritual connection to what this is all about in my beliefs. And if you try to get there as something, you just won't fully embrace it. So you just won't get there. You can't see that, which is why I love breathwork so much, because it kind of gets you out of that personality. But yeah, it's so interesting. There's so many like things happening, from like spiritual, physical death, like the death of the old self. Yeah. There's so much, and that allows you to be reborn to live fully.
Absolutely.
As who you're meant to be, Wow.
Yes, it's so cool.
It really is. I love it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I could talk about this 5 days straight with you, because we're both we could go down so many different avenues with this.
Totally.
That's why it's such a fun, exciting topic. And I feel like everyone should kind of dip their feet in it and think, how are they really living? Like, really take a survey of your life.
Yes.
What's holding you back from choosing what you truly want in your heart? What's holding you back from making the changes?
It's almost always fear.
How would you show up for your loved ones if you knew that
Them
one day
either
they won't be there or you won't be there? I honestly, I practice this every day. Like, when I hug my family members or friends, best friends, goodbye, I like feel it in my heart. I'm like, oh, or I even see it I'm like, okay, even if we're like all alive till 95 or whatever, but one day, like, I won't be able to hold you like this for some reason, whatever the reason is. So let me embrace this hug. Let me like fully be with it. So even if it's that, even if whoever's listening, if they just take that, where like, how can they just be really in it, even with this conversation with the conversation they're having today? Practice being present with everything you're doing.
Men can definitely work on that too. Men have a problem with presence.
Oh yeah. You think so? You think men more than women?
Personally, yeah. I think because of my relationship and learning that a woman feels safe when you're present with them, and like as a divine masculine, it's our job to show up with that presence. I think women have to do it too, but I'm a man, so I can speak. And I notice it in men as well now because I used to be so unpresent in all my relationships until with Irina.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to, once you kind of work on that, you start to see it in a lot of other people, like, damn, like, dude, you're not present with her, and that's why she doesn't feel safe with you. So yeah, it's so important. I asked every guest on the podcast the same question. So the podcast is called Breadcrumbs of Inspiration.
Okay.
I think you sprinkled some massive breadcrumbs today. But what is something that you can share from your life that was, and you don't got to share the details, but super challenging and super complicated, but on the other side of it, you know, you became a new person, and you can share this because it will leave like those breadcrumbs of inspiration to learn, to teach people that your shortcomings, your worst thing that's ever happened to you can actually be the best thing if you're willing to see the beauty and grace in it. So you don't have to share the experience if you don't feel comfortable, but if you do, feel free. And then at the end of it, what did you learn about you, and what can people take away from that?
Okay. So many challenges. Let's see. Which one do I want to share?
Share the one that comes to your mind first.
Well, there's one that's coming to my mind. I don't want to share the details of
Got it. Then don't. But
yeah.
give the framework.
Yeah.
If you can.
Let's see. How do I share without fully sharing? Okay. So about a year ago, something very shocking happened to me where I had to face so much shame and so many stories that I was living with in my own head. And it was one of those where it's like, oh, you get to work through certain things. And if you don't, the universe like pushes you into facing it.
Yep.
And it was so, I can't even tell you how challenging it was. It's very like traumatic. And this day, when I look back on that situation, I am so thankful because what came out of that, I mean, I had so much support during this, from my mentor to just everything I brought into my life to create safety around it.
Yep.
But now looking back on how I felt a year ago and who I am today, I send gratitude to that situation because it allowed me to see my shame around a certain topic, and it allowed me to let go of that and heal it. But again, that could have gone completely different. I mean, I could have literally been like,
married the story. Yep.
Yeah, I could have been like, I am going to take this trauma and I'm going to sit with it, and I am not going to get the help I need through this and let it lead my life. Or sometimes when people go through trauma, they won't even want to live. I mean, thoughts like that went through my mind.
Totally.
Where it's like, I don't even want to live through this. This is so much to carry, right?
I've been there too, yep.
Yeah. But then I was like, no. I'm going to get the help I need. And within a couple of days, I had all the help around me, and I transformed who I am.
Wow.
And it's funny because I was telling a friend this story this morning. I was telling Irina, a friend. And I was like, holy shit, today's the first day that I didn't share the story with a lot of people, but I was like, today's the day that I actually didn't cry when I told the story. I was laughing, and I was like, I went through that. And I'm grateful for it. And I am actually transformed. And wow, I had to go through that to work through certain shame and to practice being vulnerable and to practice being me and being like, I something like that happened, and I am who I am now. And I get to sit with other people. I mean, after that situation happened, it was really interesting. I had a best friend who actually showed up for me amazingly during that time, was staying with me every night. And one night, one of her friends came over, and we created this thing called the shame circle, because I was like, I can't tell her, like, she can't know, like, you can know, but no one else can know, because I'm so ashamed of this and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then we called it this shame circle. We created this safety net.
That's awesome.
Where then her friend got to share the shame she was holding on to. Then my friend got to share some of her stuff, and she usually doesn't share anything. She's like the person that holds space and just hears everyone else's, and she has a wall up. And then from there on, they said that they took that shame circle and they do it with different people.
Wow.
So I don't do it with anyone else. I'm like, okay. But I'm like, how cool is that? So
It's a vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
Frees you.
And the way I was like, okay, cool. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what I'm going through right now. That's not allowing me to eat, sleep, literally
Wow.
no eat. Like I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't be around anyone. And to take that and to help other people transform their stuff and be
Yes.
like, okay, we can be vulnerable with our feelings. So not only did it impact me, but I truly believe it's trickled into other people's lives and impacted them,
Totally.
which is my mission in life.
Heck yeah. Yeah. It's like, they say the light enters into the cracks.
Yeah.
It's like that pain, that suffering actually brings you to your greatest
Yeah.
awakening.
Yeah.
Same with your dad. Like, there's no way that was easy in any means. So much pain. I've never lost somebody close to me like that, so I can't even fully, understand. But in that pain, you see who you truly are, and then you come out on the other side. It's like the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Of like, we're that powerful, and the past does not equal the future. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
I know it's vulnerable, but it's always a great question to ask.
Yeah. With the timing of it too.
Yeah.
Because today something transformed in me.
Interesting.
3 weeks ago, I wasn't feeling like this.
A lot of synchronicities happening for you right now.
Yeah. Life is awesome.
Yes, it is.
Life is awesome. A little breadcrumb.
There you go. Is there anything else you would like to share that we didn't touch on? Or
No, I feel like we touched base on the whole message
Yes, we
and
did.
connecting to life.
Beautiful. So where can people find you? What's your Instagram or website? Or
My Instagram is dr.sam.nd. Website is safawellness.com. That's my concierge business.
Sweet.
Also, I'm at Remedy Place. I'm the head naturopathic doctor there. So patients can see me there unless they want concierge services. Then it's through SAFA Wellness. Another thing that's really cool is I want to tell you about what SAFA is.
yeah, let's do it.
Which is another cool story.
Let's hear it.
SAFA is the first two letters of my first name, and FA is the first two letters of my last name, so SAFA.
Got it.
And that means joy, purity, clarity in Farsi and Arabic.
Oh, cool.
Isn't that crazy? And my marketing guy came up with it without even knowing what SAFA means. He was just
Wow.
using my name. But the thing about me and what I would love everyone to connect to is joy. Always bringing joy to everything we're doing. So even in the hardest moments, how can we connect to joy every single day? Because without joy, what is life anyway?
Pretty dull.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such an awesome conversation.
Yeah, it totally
and I can't
was.
wait to continue it.
Yes, there's more. Well, make sure you check out Sam and give her a follow and maybe do a session with her. And thank you again.
Thank you.